Good day, colleagues, and happy Nurses Week. Back in 1999, the Barnes family lost their son, Patrick. Struck by the care and compassion received during this tragedy, Bonnie and Mark established a recognition program to honor nurses, the Daisy Award. Over 6,500 hospitals around the world currently offer the Daisy Award. Today, I have the honor of chatting with Mark and Bonnie. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Sil. It's a delight to be with you.
Thanks for being
Thank
here.
you.
I'm
Thank
excited.
you.
I'm excited. You know, let's just dive right into it. The Daisy Foundation celebrates 25 years. So congratulations to both of you. Did you envision the presence of the award like all over the world, like way back when?
Not in a million years. In fact, when we started the Daisy Foundation over what I often refer to as a very liquid dinner right after Patrick died, we were sitting having dinner with his wife Tina and our brand new grandbaby kind of swinging at the end of the table in a restaurant. We thought if we could say thank you to nurses in 5 hospitals around the country, we'd feel better after losing Patrick and we could go back to doing what we were doing before he got sick. But obviously that's not what happened because we started seeing the impact that the Daisy Award was having and it was addictive. We kept going and here we are today.
That's awesome.
I was just going to mention, though, so a little side story to that is that the first hospital we did it with was the University of Washington Medical Center.
Right in this backyard.
Right in this backyard. But I've always remembered the headline at the University of Washington Daily was Daisy planted at UW. So we got a nice start with it. And I think you can verify, I think it was Bonnie said in that article, if we could get 5 to 10, we really will be happy. So it's been quite a journey.
There is this special connection with Providence, Swedish First Hill, and Patrick. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yes. Patrick was a patient. When he was in the hospital, he was treated by the nurses of Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center, who at the time was part of Swedish First Hill. So when Patrick and I flew on the ambulance plane here to Seattle, we were whisked by ambulance then to Swedish First Hill, and that's where he spent the last several weeks of his life. So we have a very, very close feeling about the nurses of Swedish and Providence as a whole.
Well, in addition to that, Sil, Patrick was born at Swedish Hospital, and prior to that, I was born at Swedish Hospital, and I don't know, maybe my great-grandfather was born at Swedish Hospital, but we always have had a very close connection, and my mom went to nursing school, and she was at Providence, so we have a very big connection as a family.
Well, congratulations to you both, and I have to believe that things probably didn't go as easy and as planned at the onset. Takes a lot of tenacity to get to this point. Any words of wisdom out there? Anyone that's like trying to start from things from scratch like this that you'd want to share?
I'd like to answer that because Bonnie will be too modest with it. Perseverance. Perseverance. Bonnie was making phone call after phone call after phone call, and at the end of the first year, we had 3 hospitals that took the program.
So let me repeat that. Tons of phone calls, you're a year into it, and you have 3 hospitals.
Yeah. But
how did that feel?
Not discouraging,
Okay.
because those 3 hospitals were really into it.
Yeah.
And I had other things at the time I was doing. So it wasn't, it was okay, there's something here, but we'll see. I tell you what was the one thing that bothered me was all those people who said no or who didn't take my call at all. What I heard from many of them was, our nurses don't need recognition. They're just doing their jobs. And those were the comments that did hurt my feelings because we were so eager to give people a way to say thank you to nurses, and we believed they needed to be thanked, and we needed to say it. So But, you know, Mark says it, I'm the most persistent person I know.
It's funny, today I was just chatting with a group of nursing leaders, and we were talking about how do you go from pilot to at scale when you do something. And one of the things that I shared with them is, when you hear no, what you should hear is not right now. Right? Doesn't mean that it's just like not, that's, at least that's how I choose to hear it.
Yep.
Not right now. You chose to celebrate and recognize nurses specifically. That was very deliberate on your part.
Yes.
Why?
Well, it really, in our experience in 8 weeks in the hospital with Patrick, it was his nurses that made the difference for us. It wasn't that everybody else wasn't great. They were fine. But the nurses were not only clinically excellent, and of course they were there all the time, but it was the way they delivered their care. Not only were they compassionate and kind and sensitive to Patrick, but how they handled us as a family was incredibly touching. And that's what got us through those worst weeks of our lives. And so when he died and we sat at that liquid dinner, we found ourselves recounting stories of what the nurses had done for us. And it wasn't the other professionals, it was the nurses. And we just felt we have to find a way to thank them for what they do every day. And we were pretty sure there wasn't anything currently in the world of nursing that thanked them for what they do every day, that there were recognition for academic excellence and achievements, but there wasn't anything for their compassion. And that's what we wanted to focus on.
Yeah, I could certainly appreciate that. As part of the Daisy Award, you know, there's a ceremony. There's, you know, well, first there's the nomination, then there's the ceremony, and as part of the ceremony, there's a statue that we hand deliver to the recipient. Can you say more about that? How you even got there? Because I mean, I've heard the story before. I think it's pretty cool, and just say a little bit more about that.
Well, we wanted a gift that would symbolize that bond that we felt with Patrick's nurses. That's a unique relationship that nurses and patients have with each other. And one day, Mark and I were walking in the town that we lived in. There was an art gallery, and we saw this sculpture in the gallery. And we had seen them before because we'd been to Zimbabwe, where this is a classic design of the Shona artists. And stone carving in Zimbabwe has been a tradition for, I don't know, thousands of years. And so they called it mother and child, but we looked at it and said, that's the relationship that patients and nurses have with each other. It really is the healer's touch. So that's when we decided we needed to find a way to import from these artists in Zimbabwe these sculptures to give as gifts to our honorees. And once again, you know, we thought if we could buy 50 of them, that would be a wonderful thing. Well, we've honored going on 250,000 nurses so far. So we now have 22 artists in this community in Zimbabwe who work for us full time.
Wow.
Whose complete livelihoods are dependent on this work. But the great thing is that they are able to support hundreds of people in their extended families throughout their community, and to get a time when Zimbabwe's economy and politics have been broken for decades. It's wonderful to know that the nurses of the world are reaching around the world to Zimbabwe and supporting this community of artists. So we're pretty proud of that.
Yeah. Sil, I think it's kind of important to go back into the history of it too. When we started and first getting the sculptures, we didn't know quite how to order them, so we had an acquaintance with that gallery that Bonnie was talking about. Well, they would get a shipment in every 6 months, and the sculptures would be this big or this big or this big. There was no uniformity.
No quality control there.
No, none at all. And we did that for about a year, and until we finally ran into a shop in the mall that was set up, and it happened to, we noticed all of these beautiful ones all the same. And he was importing a whole bunch of art from Zimbabwe. So we made a deal with him, and now we're pretty uniform with the whole thing. But I'd also like to point out, I don't know if you're going to get into it later or not, but the original Daisy Award consisted of a portfolio that we got at no, excuse me, that was later on. It was a certificate. It was in a frame that we got at Costco. It was a little pin that we designed, and that is still the same design. And it was a box of Cinnabons. Everything else today has been developed by nurses and hospitals that have come up with the ideas. And Bonnie's and my background is advertising and marketing, so we were very happy to steal these ideas from everybody and incorporate them. Now, she likes to use the term, what is it, borrow?
I like to say we share them.
We share them, yes. But every idea, hospitals, once the program started to get legs, then we got a lot of enthusiasm from everybody, and it was wonderful. It really was wonderful.
A box of Cinnabon.
Yes.
Explain
Because?
that, Mark.
Well, that's you want the true story, or you want the
Of course.
or the one that I like to tell. When Pat was in the hospital, he had totally lost his appetite and wasn't eating anything at all. And we tried everything. We really did. We would bring him in treats of some kind. I like to say we started at the alphabet, and we brought in asparagus, and then we brought in broccoli, and then we brought in cauliflower. But that's not really the case. We were bringing in everything that we could think of. And then one morning, I brought in a Cinnabon, which, as you know, is part of the basic food group.
Of course.
And I brought it for me, actually, and never occurred to me to share it. But he asked for a bite of it, and then he proceeded to eat the whole thing. And that was a moment of mixed emotions on my part, because I was really happy for him, but I was really looking forward to that. But anyway, that night when we left to leave, this was while he was still at the hospital in Texas, he said, please bring me one in the morning and make sure you bring enough for all the nurses. And that's when we discovered that nurses really believe it's part of the basic food group too. And again, another little side story to that is that that afternoon, after they had all had their cinnamon rolls, for some reason, I've never figured it out, the hospital needed his little tiny room that he was in, and they had to transfer him to the VIP suite. So I don't know if there was any cause and effect there of the Cinnabon, but it certainly, I just call all of you people here, if you're ever in the hospital, it doesn't hurt to bring nurses Cinnabons.
Well, when we started the award, though, we wanted to give a way to acknowledge teamwork because we had experienced such excellent teamwork from Patrick's nurses. So we thought we should bring in cinnamon rolls for everyone. And we attached to the cinnamon rolls this message. Whenever you smell cinnamon, whether you're in the mall or the airport where there's a Cinnabon bakery, or you're at home putting cinnamon on your kid's oatmeal or whatever it is, let that smell be a sensory trigger to remind yourself how special you are because you're a nurse. Don't take this work for granted because your patients and families don't. So that message was really what we wanted to deliver with the Cinnabons, and it's pervaded every Daisy Award celebration since.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I don't know why I forgot about that piece. You know, the whole thing around sensory, you know, reminder, and so thanks for sharing that. But you know, what is the most important impact of the award from your perspective?
Well, we've done, and others have done, a lot of research into meaningful recognition, which is what Daisy is perceived as. And, you know, of course, we didn't know about this when we started it. We just wanted to say thank you. But what we've seen over the years has been this impact on organizations as recognition has become part of a healthy work environment and the standards of a healthy work environment. Importantly, for nurses, I think the most important impact is that it reminds them why they became nurses. Our CEO, Deb Zimmerman, who you know very well, often says that it fills their cup, it ties nurses back to their purpose, reminds them of the difference they're making, and that impact is really it creates joy as being a nurse. And those patient and family nominations that explain exactly what the nurse did that made such a difference have a huge impact in elevating compassion satisfaction and reducing compassion fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
But we're also seeing, and it's an area that we're going to explore deeply in this next year, an impact on patients and families who get to write those nominations. We're really intrigued. You know, Mark and I always knew that it meant a lot to us to say thank you to nurses, but we wanted to understand what it meant to patients and families other than us.
Yeah.
And so just before the pandemic, we did a qualitative study that looked at and interviewed patients who'd written nominations, and there were such compelling themes that came out of that that we really want to explore that further. And you know, of course, it reinforced for them that they were able to give, the patients were able to give something back to the nurses who took such good care of them at a time they were so vulnerable, and that was a key benefit for them. But the other thing is it spoke to the relationship that these patients had with the organization that gave them the opportunity to say thank you. And we want to pursue that loyalty issue further. So we've got a study in the works that will be out this year.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's very interesting indeed. You know, what would you say, 25 years later, what fuels your soul now? What makes you so active with the foundation?
Yeah, I often have said I haven't ever held a job this long, and certainly one that until just recently didn't pay me anything. So what fuels our soul, Mark? You know, it is so rewarding, and you've seen this, Sil. It is so rewarding to see the joy in nurses as they experience this recognition. To know that they are feeling what the differences that they're making, they're feeling the gratitude that they get. We're also blown away by our organization and the people who now work at Daisy. We've got 31 other people whose lives are committed to honoring nurses with the Daisy Award. Our team is amazing. We are so proud of them and the work that they do in supporting this program and creating infrastructure that makes it easy to deliver Daisy Awards month in and month out. That's a joy to watch our own team grow and prosper and love what they do. Their longevity with us is tremendous. We often say they don't want to leave, which is fantastic. They're just our extended family. So those things really fuel us. And Mark, is there anything else you would add?
Well, I wanted to just say right off the bat, as I have grown older and wiser, Sil, I tend to agree with everything Bonnie says. And in this case, I could not agree with her more, that this is actually, I think, what we are doing and the I guess, dedication to our employees to want to keep this going, because they have been absolutely fantastic with the whole thing.
You know, we've known each other for a few years now, and I was going to say I'm struck. It's probably not the right word, but I'm reminded in hearing you say what keeps your soul, what keeps you going. And here's something that I'm hearing today that is just absolutely amazing. I'm hearing that what feeds you and why you keep on doing this, it's all about others. It has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do.
It doesn't have anything to do with us.
and that's amazing.
Yeah.
That is just absolutely amazing. Yeah. Okay, so we're 25 years into it. What's the future of the Daisy Award?
Oh, well, with the support of an incredible team and our CEO, Deb, I think the future is very exciting. First of all, we're growing internationally by leaps and bounds. And it's so exciting for us to learn about nursing around the world. I mean, nurses may have all kinds of different skills and scopes of practice and all of that, but in their hearts, nurses are the same everywhere. And to experience their compassion, no matter who they are or where they practice, is very exciting. We continue to drive the international front. We continue to drive compassionate excellence and recognition of compassionate care wherever nurses practice. So where we started as hospital-based, as nursing is going well beyond hospital settings, we want to be there with them. So Daisy is now honoring nurses in every kind of setting you can think of, and in schools of nursing, in surgery centers, in all kinds of ambulatory settings, correction facilities, military bases around the world, throughout the VA, name it, wherever nurses practice, corporate America where nurses are practicing. There is a reason for Daisy to be there, and we're really excited to continue to drive that out. I think the other great future for Daisy is to continue to remind the C-suite of why recognition and investing in nurses and recognition of nurses is so important. The value of nursing cannot be overestimated, cannot be overestimated. And so we are there with these phenomenal stories of what nurses do and what they mean to patients and families that we want the C-suite and boards of directors to take to heart and appreciate why they have to take care of their nurses.
Yeah.
And we think Daisy can help serve that as well.
Yeah.
Sil, I would like to add, though, too, our emphasis is in nursing. No question about that. We're totally dedicated to that. But we realize that hospital, it is a team effort on a lot of points. So we also totally support recognition for other disciplines. And I want to make that clear, that nurses are our passion, but they're the kitchen staff, the environmental staff, all of those people deserve recognition because they're all doing an awful lot of work, and a lot of hard work, and oftentimes they're unrecognized. And so we try to promote other recognition for all the disciplines that are in there. And I got to be honest, I think a lot of hospitals have adapted programs like the Tulip Award or the Rose Award or this type of award for other disciplines.
Yeah, we're happy about that.
Yeah, you've created a movement.
Yeah,
You
it's
really
exciting.
have. Yeah,
Well,
really have.
it is very rewarding. I remember, it was probably the third or fourth year, one of the hospitals, the CEO came up to us after a presentation and said, Daisy has changed the culture of this hospital. We now say thank you to each other. We look out for each other. We smile more than we used to. And that was really gratifying to us. And I think more and more that is happening, that it does create a culture. You know, I used to say nurses, they love research, you know. And it used to frustrate me because we didn't have the research when we first started to do it. So we would say, do this and take the Daisy Award, and they would say, well, show me the evidence. And I would say the evidence is if you pat somebody on the back and say you're doing a good job, they feel better. What more research do you need than that?
Yeah, right.
But medicine is different, and I accept that it is different. You can't just say, I think we should take out an appendix this way. We need research to do that. But there are some things that are just common sense to me, and that was so frustrating to me, more so than it was to Bonnie, that more and more hospitals at the start wouldn't take it because recognition makes you feel good.
Yep, yep.
Just turns everything around.
Behind every single one of those awardees, there's a story. Yes. There's a story, there's a life that they've touched. Is there any special moment that comes to mind, a special, like a memorable Daisy Award that you might want to share with us today?
Wow, you know, that's like saying choose among your 250,000 children.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Who's your favorite child?
Yes, however, there are a couple of experiences that we've had that really do stand out. So, you know, I think you know that Mark and I experienced a horror of a wildfire in 2017 that devastated the Daisy shipping department and a good part of our property. A year later, while we were still dealing with our own trauma, the town of Paradise, California burned down. And we were asked to come to do a Daisy Team Award for all the nurses who evacuated the hospital in Paradise. Their homes were at risk. Many of them, most of them, lost their homes. But the experience of hearing what they had done to take care of their patients during the worst possible experience was overwhelming, and they hadn't seen each other in the 6 weeks since the fire had happened. So being with them as they got together again, as they as they regrouped, as they were recognized, as they shared their stories and their tears and their fear, which was very close to our own. Right? That was an amazing experience back, and that was in 2018. You know, story after story after story during COVID of the things that nurses did to connect patients with family members who couldn't be there. Touched our hearts just tremendously. We couldn't imagine what was, you know, we were with Patrick. We were there every day and night, so I can't imagine what it would have been like to have someone in, you know, in the hospital that when we couldn't be with him, and the nurses were. So we can go on and on about the stories that have touched us over the years. There are way too many of them.
I noticed last week, so you all recently wrote a book. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, yes, thank you for asking. Well, at the end of 20 years at Daisy, we wanted to share our story of how we'd gone from nothing to, at that time, about 4,000 hospitals that had our program or organization. So, and frankly, part of the reason was that I was afraid we'd forget our stories as we age. So we figured we better write them down. So we were very fortunate to meet a wonderful writer named Jim Eber, who, you know, is supposed to be our ghostwriter, but he has become a very dear friend. And we wrote the book, Shining the Light on All the Right, Celebrating the Art of Nursing Around the World. And really it was to pay tribute to all the nurses and others who helped us make Daisy, Daisy. Well, now fast forward another 5 years, you know, we ended the book at, you know, prior to COVID. We felt there was more to say. So we are getting ready in the fall. We will publish the 25th anniversary edition.
Awesome.
Which adds new stories and a whole lot of new material about what Daisy's been doing and thinking and feeling since the year 2020, so for the last 5 years. And I will tell you, and Jim and we have laughed about this, it was harder to write the last 32 pages than it was to write the first 200, because this has been such a tough time for nursing. And there was a lot to say. So thank you for bringing up the book. We're very excited about the new edition and hope that many, many nurses will have a chance to read the story.
It's a worthwhile read, that's for sure. I can't thank you enough. I can't thank you enough for all of what you've done all these years and the many years to come. And thank you for spending time with me today.
Well, thank you.
I really appreciate that. You know, I believe in the power of gratitude. You have actually created a movement in our profession. You're making such an impact. Quite frankly, you give us hope. And for that, I am extremely grateful. Thank you so much to both of you.
Oh, thank you, Sil. Our relationship with you and all of Providence, as it has built over these many years, means the world to us. We know personally the care that Providence nurses provide. Many of our friends and family have been your patients, and we're really proud of this. Thank you.
No, thank you. Happy Nurses Week, everybody.
Happy Nurses Week.